Thank you for joining us for today's Thought for the Day, December the 27th. The readings for today are Job 37, Zechariah chapter 12 and Revelation 14. The title of today's Thought for the Day is The Burden of the Word of the Lord. All too often the prophets of the Lord had to bring messages of coming acts of judgment from him. These were predictions that were sure and certain. What a burden this is for a prophet. The Hebrew word for burden has the primary meaning of a pronouncement of doom to someone, or all too often Israel. Yet Zechariah's prophecy has many parts, but who can say with any certainty how these parts fit together? Part of yesterday's chapter 11, dealt with the events to be fulfilled at the first coming of Christ, when the 30 pieces of silver, verse 2, were thrown to the potter, verse 13. They were a clear prediction, which was fulfilled when the temple priests brought with them the potter's field. After Judas, in remorse, threw down the money in the temple. Today's chapter starts, the burden of the word of the Lord, but it is a burden against the enemies of Israel. It is often quoted because it seems clear. It has a latter-day application. We note the burden of the prophet's message is that God will make Jerusalem a cup of staggering. Firstly, to all the surrounding peoples. It is the only place where this word, that is translated staggering, occurs in the Hebrew scriptures. It is rendered as reeling or trembling in other versions. It fits rather well with the frustrations and weaknesses of the nations around Israel during my lifetime. Verse 3 is even more thought-provoking. The Lord's message is, "On that day I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all peoples." What peoples? The prophet continues, "All who lift it will surely hurt themselves, and all the nations of the earth will gather against it." Does all the nations of the earth refer to a United Nations sponsored force? It seems to make sense. They are utterly unable to lift the problem of Jerusalem from their agenda. The USA and Europe are staggering today in one sense, that is financially. If we see them totally distracted by a huge financial implosion sometime, maybe soon, perhaps, it is possible, maybe probable, that the Islamic nations supported by Russia will sponsor a UN force aiming to gather armies against Jerusalem. This is just one possibility. The word Jew originates from Judite, and God will act for the sake of the house of Judah. Then the clans of Judah shall say, "The inhabitants of Jerusalem have strength through the Lord of hosts their God." Verses 4 and 5. "And I, says God, will pour out a spirit of grace, so that when they look on me, on whom they pierced, they shall mourn." Verse 10. John 19, verse 34 tells us that the final act against Christ was the piercing of his side. When the Jews finally recognize their Messiah, what remorse will follow? But the rest of Zechariah's prophecy still has many challenges to our understanding, and we hope to comment further tomorrow. May it not be a burden to us to read or meditate on God's Word every day, making sure our meditation includes a personal application. Thank you for joining us for today's Thought for the Day. If you found it helpful, please share it with your friends. And remember, whatever you do today, do all to the glory of God, acknowledging that the antidote to sin is not only not to sin, but to do good. Thank you, and God bless.